Today's topic on Rethink Real Estate is other auction companies. It's a topic that, again, I haven't ever really addressed properly. I should do it more often. I just don't want to create friction where there doesn't need to be friction. However, it's gotten to the point now where we've put some new people on. We're going in and into other territories, offering all agencies auction within marketplaces where our company isn't based. And the part of this at the luxury price point, you've seen other auction companies, and the process that they're offering. I feel sorry for anybody that's going down it, and I just want to give a better understanding out there of that. You can change your strategy and change your options, and for a very, very nominal fee. And one of the things that I go into in the episode is go into more detail around what they're doing. But one of the points I didn't make that I want to make now is that I had a conversation with somebody the other day where their property was on the marketplace for $2.2 million. Their next price reduction was going to have to be to 1.999 in order to attract a different marketplace. Now, our fee, if we got them $2 million, would be $20,000. We charge 1% of the purchase price, okay? And I said, what would be better off at your seller doing? Taking it to auction, and if we are successful, getting a $20,000 fee charged, or a $200,000 price reduction and eroding away their equity. I think that's a good point. Hopefully this episode helps clarify. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Hey team, welcome back to Rethink Real Estate. Today, what I want to talk about is other auction companies. It's an interesting topic to go through because I've probably avoided this for as long as possible because I don't know. I'm not sure. I never like to bring up other people or competitors. I think we'll psychoanalyze that later. I think. However, recently we've had a gentleman join us from another auction company, and I've got a couple of new guys that have joined the team, Matt and Gabriel, and then also Chase, who are doing some outreach in some new marketplaces for us. We're targeting the Miami marketplace or Florida, I should say, or the greater Miami marketplace. We've got Tennessee on the books now as well, Texas, and just a few areas that we've seen struggle. We've got something coming up in Arizona as well, and then also the up in Bel Air and the Hollywood Hills is certainly struggling in that marketplace from a luxury standpoint. So we like to reach out and we offer our auction process to them. But the one thing that I wanted to sort of circle back on today is we've come into contact with sellers that are a little bit more familiar with the auction process. And what I mean by that is that when I say that sellers are a little bit more familiar with the auction process is that there's these other auction companies that are out there that are very financially well backed, that are out there, talking to people on a regular basis about, using auction at their luxury price point. And I'm talking about more of the marketplace that's over $4 million, maybe over $5 million, where these companies are reaching out to those sellers and to those agents and offering them auction. And one of the interesting parts about this that we've found in the process, and it's just my perception that I'm going through today, guys, you may have a little bit more of a different perception of this if you go through and do your own research here, which I would encourage you to go through and look at all of your options, is that coming into this is that sitting down with the team the other day and we were talking about an outreach, and when you do any type of cold prospecting, there is always this air of nervousness about reaching out to prospects. And in our situation, prospects are agents with listings that have been on the marketplace a little longer than them and the clients have liked, and we're reaching out with a solution versus a price reduction on that property. Now, our fees that we're charging is 1% of the purchase price and an administration fee that varies based on the size of the property, which is a nominal fee up front, okay? And the part about this that, I had to talk to one of the gentlemen who's working with us now who used to work for one of these previous auction companies. He would always, go and get people interested in the process, and then there would just be this pit in his stomach knowing that there was these other things and these underlying problems within their process that he was going to have to go over. Now, it was really refreshing to sit down with the guys and go, guys, we are genuinely reaching out because we genuinely know that we can help these agents and the sellers get their property sold for a low barrier to entry fee. So I just explained our fee structure. Give you an example of what other auction companies are charging. They're charging a 12% buyer premium, between 10 and 12% buyer premium. You have some that do like 5%, but that's auction.com that does all of these other ones. Okay, I'm going to try and leave names out of this, even though I just mentioned auction.com, but at the end of the day, they're very well known for being a distressed real estate company. However, I want to leave names out of this because I just think it would be unfair to name them. If you guys are interested in the auction space, you're definitely able to definitely Google them. However, they're charging these buyer premiums up front and saying that, hey, look, you won't have to pay for realtor commissions, you don't have to pay for closing costs. But realistically, when a buyer bids, $10 million on a property, $1.2 million of that goes to the auction company as a buyer premium, or on top of that, the buyer has to pay that. So at the end of the day, people aren't silly. They're going to always look at the factors of that, hey, look, I'm going to have to pay this, so therefore I'm going to equate it into the price. But then the other part that's really awkward as well is fees of between $50 and $150, in some cases $250,000 up front that the auction company charges for marketing. Okay. Now, when I say marketing, I'm doing that is in absolute italics and weird elements of putting the property out there. I think that the thing that I used the other day when I was speaking to a seller, and we do a great deal of research on the marketing side of things, and don't get me wrong, is that the property needs to be marketed correctly. But did you know that for every property over $5 million that's sold in North America in the last 12 months, 98% of them were seen on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, or an online portal, that then the buyer reached out to their agent and told them about it if they did have an agent or they came directly. I think that we get into this space of saying the word marketing, and marketing is just this absolute gimmick to make a seller feel like you are actually doing something as an agent. And in these situations, it is something that they feel is a necessary evil to actually get from sellers up front. And I believe that they're promoting their own company with the seller's funds versus actually taking it through a process to find value in the marketplace. One of the things that I love about auction is the low barrier to entry that we create in order for somebody to find out what their home is worth in today's marketplace as quickly as possible. These other auction companies, they go into a marketplace, and I can name many of these marketplaces where they do one auction, they sell the property, because this is another big part of this. Not only are they charging a buyer premium at the end of the transaction, and they're charging a huge marketing fee up front. Some are choosing not to now because it's so much resistance against this, of these big fees up front, is that then, okay, if they're not charging a marketing fee, or even if they are charging a marketing fee, they're doing what is called a non-reserve auction, where if that property starts a live auction, the seller is obligated to accept whatever turns up. There is just so much conflict and so much friction in this transaction that the auction process itself, I could just imagine the levels of anxiety that are going through the agent, the auction team, and the sellers. I would hate to be part of that transaction. And at the end of the day, forcing something to happen is not something that anybody wants to be involved in, because all it turns out is that it creates litigation issues. So, as our process stands, is that we're charging a nominal fee that gets charged through escrow. Now, whether the seller chooses to pay the 1% fee or whether the agent chooses to absorb that fee, that depends on the relationship that they have, and it's done very upfront. We're charging a very, very small administration fee, and the reason I'm not pointing out that number, because it varies per price point and it varies based on the price, okay? But it is unbelievably nominal. We ask the seller to pay for all the reports and disclosures that are typically done within escrow, or if a property is under contract, depending on what state that you are, or in the due diligence period, we get all of that stuff done up front. And in essence is that we give them a low barrier to entry to find out what a property is worth in that marketplace. We have over a 90% clearance rate with our auctions that we take on. More than 50% of those properties were previously listed on the market traditionally. But why I'm pointing this out is that, let's just say that we don't sell 10% of those properties, right? Out of those 10%, 85% of those sellers choose to hold on to the property because they know they've given it the best shot. The agent has given it the best shot to get the property sold in that marketplace. It provides answers. It's not the promise of a price. It is a process to provide. It's a process to find out market value and give the seller the opportunity to say yes or no. So again, we've created this process that we're trying to merge both traditional and auction together. And in many of these situations for other auction companies, they don't allow a seller to accept an offer prior to auction day. Whereas in our situation, if there is an offer prior to auction that is, far better than the other competition, or again is the right situation to sell that property, we sell it prior to auction. Again, we're not precious about this process. It's just a matter of getting the outcome that the seller is looking for or getting the seller an answer, and everybody involved an answer, including ourselves as auction team, listing agent, and the sellers to know, hey, what is the property worth really in today's marketplace with the market finding its own feet. So again, just to recap, if you were to look at another auction company, you've got not only a marketing fee up front, okay? If there isn't a marketing fee, most likely they're going to ask you to do a non-reserve auction, which really puts a great deal of everybody at risk, okay? Now, that said, there is also this buyer premium attached to the end of the sale, which is between 8, 10, 12%, whatever that looks like. And it's just simply confusing, okay? Because who is actually paying that? The seller is actually paying that. It's just like when somebody finds out that, maybe a property has to have a paint job or, a new roof, okay? And they're going through the due diligence phase. How much is a new roof? $20,000. The buyer goes, oh, well, for me to deal with that, I'm going to need a $50,000 reduction. Again, everything gets over the top exaggerated, okay? And the seller ends up paying for it anyway in a greater sense. But then the other part about this that I really do love about what we're offering is that as we sat down with our team and said to them, guys, there is no hidden secrets here. You are getting an agent to have a conversation with us about auction and about helping their seller and about helping that property sell. There's no hidden things in anything that we're doing here. The gulp moment where you're like, okay, we're going to have to figure this out because they're interested, but now how are they going to react when we tell them that there's this much marketing up front or whatever? We don't have any of that. This is genuinely a process in order to help your clients through a tough spot or help you through a tough spot of finding out what the marketplace is worth and getting answers. And that's what I really do enjoy about this process. And when we tried to sort of figure out what the other companies were doing, it's really untransparent. Some auctions, they really change the deal and they change another one. They sort of fit it for the individual circumstances, and there's absolutely no consistency. Where I know the one thing about auction is there has to be consistency in the process in order for it to work, okay, across the board. But either way, hopefully that's either further confused you or maybe given you some clarity around other auction companies if that was something that you were looking for answers for. I know that it's probably a little bit as clear as mud, but again, there's a great deal of smoke and mirrors where genuinely we're just trying to do an auction to find out what market value is at that particular date and time so a seller can say yes or no with complete control. I think that's the important part. Hopefully this has helped. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.